Good morning, everyone. Thanks to all of you for joining Midwest Dairy Association today for our webinar. I'm Trish Scorpio, and I work with the Integrated Communications team at Midwest Dairy, and I'm excited to lead our session this morning. As we kick off today's event, I wanted to just remind you a little bit about Midwest Dairy. We represent 8,000 dairy farm families to 38 million consumers across 10 Midwestern states. So we are actively working on behalf of dairy farmers to increase dairy sales, to foster innovation, and inspire consumer confidence in dairy products and practices. And we're excited this morning to collaborate with our communications partner, Fleischmann-Hillard, to present this webinar on consumer insights on dairy's role in the clean and clear labeling trend. This is the 5th webinar in our series that we've been holding this year, and the last one for 2016. But I wanted to let you know that thanks to your strong attendance and interest, we will be developing another webinar series in 2017. And we're always interested in hearing if there are specific dairy-related topics that you'd like us to address. So we'll be doing some follow-up emails after this session, and if there are topics that you're interested in hearing more about, please feel free to weigh in. So I wanted to kick off the session this morning and introduce our speaker who will be sharing her insights and expertise. Christy Siegler is the Senior Vice President at Fleischmann-Hillard out of their Kansas City office, and she and her team have played a key role in working with us to develop and commission this survey that we'll be talking about this morning. Christy has more than 20 years of product development and marketing strategy experience in both the retail and the food service spaces. And since joining Fleischmann in 2010, she's been a leader of the agency's Food and Agribusiness Practice Group. And she works to help clients uncover and translate consumer insights into profitable programs and products, really focusing on the food and nutrition industries. So we're pleased she's able to join us this morning. And in terms of housekeeping, I wanted to remind you that we'll be recording this presentation, and we'll send out the link to the deck and the recording afterwards in case you want to go back and listen to portions or share it with your colleagues who might have been unable to participate this morning. And we'll also be holding time out at the end of the session to answer any questions that you have. So feel free to jot them down as you go in the question box, or we'll again hold time at the end. So before we get into the details of this morning's sessions, I wanted to provide a high-level overview of what we'll be covering. Christy's going to kick it off by talking about what we mean or how we're defining the terms clean and clear, particularly when it comes to food and dairy labels. And while I know a lot of you know this, we thought we would provide this background just in case you need to share it with anyone that you're talking to about these results to kind of help ground them in these definitions. Christy's also going to share some examples about how this trend is really manifesting itself and really top of mind throughout the entire food industry. So it'll give you some context about why this is an important topic, not for the food industry, but also for us on behalf of dairy. And then we're going to get into the nuts and bolts and provide an overview of the survey that Midwest Dairy commissioned earlier this year to really try to identify consumer perceptions about how dairy and dairy foods fit into this clean and clear labeling trend. And we'll talk through some of the key findings that highlight where there are some potential gaps of understanding that we'll want to try to really work on. And then I'll take some time to talk through how Midwest Dairy is planning to activate around these learnings that we uncovered in the survey and share what tools we have available and ideas for our staff and our partners so that we can all use this information collaboratively to talk through and to clarify how dairy really fits into this exciting trend. And as I mentioned before, we'll reserve time at the end to answer questions. So now we can get it started, and I will hand it over to Christy.
Thanks, Trish, and good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be with you today. We'll start, as Trish mentioned, by defining what clean and clear mean in the food industry. And as you can see on this next slide, clean ingredients and thinking about clean labels has been around for quite a while. Very simply defined as fewer ingredients, ingredients we recognize, and to borrow a statement from Michael Pollan, no more than 2 syllables / something you may have seen in your grandmother's kitchen. But what we really have seen in the last few years is clean evolving to be clear. And so that's all of the things that a clean label entitled, but also, knowing more about where the food specifically came from. Wanting to understand what happened from an on-farm practices point of view, and that would be from either animal production or from crop production. Wanting to understand the food safety across the entire value chain, seeking some understanding of how the food might be processed and what might be added to it during that production piece. And more recently, we're starting to see a lot of focus on sustainability and overall environmental impact. So in my mind, I think of the old Breyer's ice cream commercial with the young children reading the ingredient decks as being what we thought of as a clean label. And then, clear is really the collapse of that value chain and now being in a food and ag ecosystem where consumers want to know everything that happened up to the farm, and we've got producers making decisions based on what consumers' preference are because everything in the middle is transparent. And the data point at the bottom is from IFT this year. So this is no longer an emerging trend, but when you have nearly 60% of food manufacturers saying their foods are clean, this is definitely becoming kind of the ante for the industry. So, the question then is, that's what's happening, but is this really impacting consumers' behavior? And as we can see here, it really is. So when we look at the data here on the next slide, almost 3 out of 4 consumers say it's important that the labels that they're reading, and depending on the study, we know consumers read different parts of different labels, but they're looking for things that they recognize and things that they use at home. And now what we're seeing is not only am I looking for things that I recognize, but those things I recognize are impacting the products that I'm purchasing. So now we are seeing this shift from just being something that I look for to being a driver of purchase, and we've got nearly 3 out of 10 consumers saying, yes, these clean labels do impact my decisions. So on this next slide, we're going to pull that 28% down into a little bit of more detail. And this is a study from the Hartman group. They've tracked the same series of questions in 3-year intervals, and while we don't have the 2016 data yet, you can only imagine where that will have gone. But if you look at the significant increases in consumers saying they're looking for a short list of ingredients, looking for locally grown or produced, ingredients they recognize, and minimal processing, we see nearly double-digit growth in the last 6 years, and now would be 9 years, in these metrics. So going from being, in that 15% range to nearly 30% on each of these metrics. So this trend has seen significant growth, and we expect that to continue to grow. So that's what consumers are thinking about. Let's look at how the industry is responding. And I think many of you are probably very aware of how Panera is activating this clean trend. And on the next slide here, you'll see kind of where they started and where we've been in the last about 6 months. So at the end of 2014, Panera was the first company to come out with the no-no list. And that included absolutely everything that was in their stores, everything that went into every single ingredient that they brought in, whether it was a product that was finished before it got to their restaurants or as they were baking in their bakery cafes. And over the course of 2 years, they've worked with their suppliers and their culinary team and their operations team to remove the things on the no-no list without compromising the consumer experience. And if many of you might recall, they started at the same time they did the no-no list. They ran a series of online videos asking consumers to attempt to pronounce some of the things that are on here, and specifically the one that I remember is about TBHQ, which many of you will know is helps as a preservative to help extend shelf life. And not only can consumers not pronounce it, but when asked, they're like, I don't want this in my food. So Panera was really using their guests and their consumers to drive their purchase decisions. Another thing that we have seen in 2016 is they've made clean a focus of their television advertising. They go specifically through select menu items. I think there's about 3 different spots that are running right now, one talking to their clean kids items, one talking to their overall focus on clean, and one talking to their promoted menu items. So while they continue to showcase their overall taste and quality and to drive traffic and sales, they are doing that in the context of having a clean ingredient story. And then what you see here on the right, this is the game, the online game that Panera created to really reinforce, not only their commitment, but to use it as a chance to educate consumers on what they have done and why they believe that it matters. So probably the flag bearer of the clean processing trend in food service would be Panera. But wanted to share another example here, and that would be with McDonald's. So while this is less of an obtuse call to action from a clean and clear perspective, they're being very transparent about what's happening in their value chain and taking on, questions that even 5 years ago they would have shied away from. So as you can only imagine, they have a lot of animal care issues that they're handling, and this specific question is one that's very relevant to the dairy industry, and that's their perspective on RBST. So they again are having the conversation without using the labels clean and clear, but they're delivering on consumers' clean and clear expectations. So that's a little bit about what's happening in the food service industry. We're going to shift now to food processing and share an example from what you could consider to be a very tried and true and almost a commodity product, which is mayonnaise. A very different perspective here from Unilever and from Hellmann's. As you can see with the cage-free eggs, they're borrowing the equity of an industry organization to certify their process. And then on something that's even less defined, which is responsibly sourced, again, borrowing the equity of field to market to define something for consumers. But perhaps more importantly, they are using farmers to help tell that story. So soybean oil is absolutely a commodity product, and there would be it would be extremely challenging to trace a specific acre to a specific jar of mayonnaise. But they're using select farmers to illustrate the commitment to all of the things that having a clean and clear label entails, and making that be a very clear part of how they approach the marketplace. So we've got a definition for clean and clear. We know the industry is looking for it, but then we asked ourselves the question, what about dairy? We know we have a trend, but as we looked for research, it wasn't immediately clear that we didn't have a deep understanding of consumers' expectation when it came to dairy. We did have a fact, though, and as you can see here on the next slide, when you compare labels, and going back to that very first definition of what is a clean product, on the surface, the labels tell a very clear story. Milk has only 3 ingredients: milk, vitamin A, and vitamin D. And as we look at the assortment of milk alternatives, that can be up to 3 or 4 times more from a number of ingredients. It includes flavoring agents, stabilizers, thickeners, and sugars to create a product that has a consistency and flavor similar to milk. So we had a fact, but we still had some questions, and that's what you'll see here. What do consumers know about the difference between milk and other beverages? How do milk and dairy foods compare to other foods? And the most important question on this next slide, how does that impact their purchase behavior? We have all this data about, in generality, about how clean and clear labels impact food purchases, but as we looked for information, we didn't have a good sense of how that impacted purchases of milk and dairy products, and how that compared to their purchase of milk alternatives in those products, which set up our research project. And as you can see here on this very next slide, we knew that consumers are purchasing clean and clear products, and we knew that the industry is actively marketing their products as clean and clear as a way to show relevancy, to drive preference, and to drive purchase. But what we didn't know is where on this entire spectrum milk and dairy products were, how that compared to milk alternatives, and potentially most importantly for those of us in communications, what were the triggers to consumers that dairy was or wasn't a clean and clear product? Was it something from an on-farm perspective? Was it in the processing section of our work? Or were there things we could put on our package that really delivered that? And that led to our consumer research project. So a really quick overview here on the next page as to how we conducted the study. As Trish mentioned in her introduction, these are the 10 states that make up the Midwest Dairy Association, and we sampled 100 primary and secondary grocery shoppers in each of these states and worked through a variety of topics to understand not only their overall perspective on clean and clear products, how that tied back to milk and milk alternatives, and looked for then the triggers, whether it be from a processing, from a packaging, from an ingredient, from an animal care perspective, what was going to drive their knowledge, all of with the goal of having full information so we can continue to educate consumers so they can make an informed decision. So now on to the exciting stuff. So we'll be sharing some survey results here, and as Trish mentioned at the beginning, we'll not only be sharing this presentation as well as the recording of this, but we'll be sending a link to the executive summary of the research, which will provide an overview of all the key data points we'll be sharing in the next few minutes. If you have any additional questions after today's presentation, as Trish mentioned, we'll take some at the end, but we're also happy to take your questions after you have time to spend with the data to make sure that you fully understand this and how it might apply to your business. So let's jump in. The first thing that we wanted to study is what drives dairy purchases, and we asked a number of attributes of consumers. And I don't think it would be any surprise, the first two are the same two that they are for almost any product category that you would speak to, which is what is the price of the product and what is the taste of the product that I'm looking at. What was really interesting to us is what came in number 3 and number 4. Depending on the study that you would look at, what you can often see as a 3 and a 4 would be the healthfulness or a set of convenience. We're seeing two different things pop up here for milk. First would be the milk fat level, whether it be whole, 2%, 1%, or skim. And then the fourth item here is really where we start to see that impact of that best by sell-by date and consumers being very purposeful about looking for the longest gap between today's date and what is printed on that package so that they can be a good steward of what they're bringing into their refrigerator. One last thing to call out on this page before we move on is you can see some of the attributes that scored below average had to deal with animal welfare. So just wanted to provide a sense of what the top drivers were, the ones that were unique to dairy, and then kind of scale where animal care came to play. So now the very first question, is dairy clean? We wanted to make sure we were using clean in the context of this study. So we asked very similar questions to the key points I've already shared with you, which is that clean is defined as having no artificial ingredients, flavors, or preservatives, and it's things that I recognize. The great news is dairy absolutely delivers. And what we'll be walking through now is how dairy products compare to other packaged goods. We started by asking about milk in the context of all beverages. So if you think about, all of us as consumers, whether we're walking into a grocery store or a convenience store, we have any number of choices when it comes to what we would like to drink. And the great news here is, as you can see, is that milk was rated the number 2 cleanest beverage behind only bottled water. However, when we look at ourselves as compared to other choices, there were some big ahas for us. As you'll notice, this assortment of milk alternatives scored just below milk. So milk being at 74%, all of the range of milk alternatives between 65 and 72%. So consumers do not see a significant gap between the cleanliness of milk and milk alternatives. And perhaps another caution for us was where flavored milk appeared as compared to other beverages. Statistically, really right at those sports drinks and significantly below milk alternatives. So many of you on the call have been very active in process and product improvements to flavored milk to make it a more clean product. So we know that this is a message that we need to continue to reinforce to consumers so they understand exactly what it takes to deliver that great tasting flavored milk. So now let's talk about dairy foods. We asked, basically take that whole grocery store, looking at things in the refrigerated section, in the packaged food section, kind of the center of the store. We looked at the other fresh categories, and the great news is of all the products that we asked, the top 4 clean products were all dairy. So as you can see here, yogurt, cheese, cottage cheese, and butter. When we look at dairy products that have additional processing, as you can see here, we've got flavored yogurt and processed cheese. That's where we start to see a little bit of a drop-off. So we think our challenge here is to, again, in the spirit of transparency and sharing the the clear dairy processing is to help consumers understand what the industry is doing to deliver these products, what the additional processing steps are, and how it delivers that quality product that they're looking for. Shifting gears a little bit, we want to talk about how consumers perceive different types of milk and how the nutrition of that milk may vary. The good news is, 9 out of 10 consumers know that the calories are different between different types of milk. So as they see the shift from whole being on one end and fat-free on the other, they know that there's going to be a shift in calories. Our aha in this line of questioning was that there wasn't any clear understanding about what happened to the other nutritional nutrients when in processing. So, our opportunity here is to continue to reinforce that all types of milk have 9 essential nutrients. Moving on to processing, the great news is here in the Midwest dairy states, a lot of us paid attention in high school science and know what pasteurization is and why milk is pasteurized. As you can see here, there's a gap between the knowledge about pasteurization and homogenization. However, from a clean and clear perspective, very good news in that consumers believe that both of these processes don't impact the cleanliness of milk. They understand that these are for quality and for safety. The challenge is they do believe, 4 out of 10 believe that these processes do impact nutrition. So from an education, we've got half the way there. Consumers understand that these are necessary to deliver a safe and quality product, but there's still an opportunity to close the gap about how they may or may not impact nutrition. Another key line of insight for us was how consumers think about milk as compared to milk alternatives. And as you can see here, less than 1/3 of consumers understand that there are nutritional differences between milk and milk alternatives. As many of you know, how specifically they differ depends on not only the type of milk alternative, but also the specific milk alternative. But for us, the bigger aha was that consumers believe they are equal, and there's a communication opportunity for us here to make sure that consumers know that there's a difference so that they can make an informed decision. And then lastly, I want to quickly recap a couple other key lines of questioning and how they ladder up to clean and clear. As we talked at the beginning, we asked a series of questions about animal care and how they may impact how consumers would, how they purchase dairy products and how it impacts their understanding of dairy being a clean product. And while they were in the bottom half, they certainly still do impact for some consumers how they perceive it. For us, the key insight here was, very similar to what I showed you with the Hellmann's example. A key driver for consumers from an animal care perspective is looking for some type of a symbol that is industry-wide to showcase that. So, as the farm program continues to be more widely adopted, perhaps this is something to consider down the road. And lastly, as we mentioned again, that best by, use by, sell by dates really pop up high from a purchase factor. So, they certainly are used, for us to deliver a quality product, to be rotating in store, and as consumers to make sure that we're managing it within our own refrigerator. But I think that is one of the things that's unique to dairy and something that we just want to continue to reinforce. So before I send this over to Trish to share the exciting new tools that we've put together to activate these learnings, just a reminder that I have spent 10 minutes sharing a lot of facts with you, but we'll be sharing the complete executive summary with you as part of the follow-up to this call, and we welcome any questions you have today or as you review the data in the future. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Trish to share some exciting new tools and support pieces that we've put together to help showcase these key findings to consumers. Trish?
Great, thanks, Christy. So as Christy mentioned, now that we've had the chance to dig in a little bit to the survey findings, I'm going to preview some of the key messages and strategies and resources that Midwest Dairy will be using to activate with consumers to really help close some of those gaps and challenges that Christy mentioned. And I would like to also share some ideas with all of you as our partners about how you can join us in these efforts in sharing information if it works within your communications plan. information. So the next slide really talks about our communications opportunity. You know, we spend some time really looking at the survey, looking at consumer feedback, looking where the gaps and the misconceptions might be, and now we're really moving into the phase of figuring out how do we better educate and close those gaps with consumers around dairy and how it fits into the clean and clear trend. And so this is a preview for all of you because we're going to be kicking off our efforts in January of 2017, and we're going to be focusing on this early in the year at a time when individuals are really thinking about New Year's resolutions and about eating healthier and integrating potentially cleaner foods into their eating habits. But it's really, there are messages that will be woven into our outreach throughout the year because we know that this is really a topic of interest to consumers. So while we're rolling this out in early 2017, it's something that we are going to be focusing on throughout the year and really integrating it into our overall messaging. And we're going to be rallying around that topic, the tagline, "The choice is clear with dairy." And we're going to be taking advantage of that play on words that will point out, number one, how well dairy does fit into the clean and clear trend. That 3 label, easy to read, obviously easy to understand label. And then number 2, why it should be or could be a clear choice for individuals and families who are really looking to integrate cleaner foods into their daily diet. And our goal, and we hope that all of you as partners will join us in this goal, is really to engage consumers in a conversation, both online, either through our website or through our social channels, and in one-on-one and group settings. So we've got some tools that can be used for online conversations and some tools that are available to be used during those in-person conversations or during meetings and presentations whenever this topic comes up. So I wanted to just share how we have really looked at all of the information that we uncovered in the survey and focused on some key messages under 2 key umbrellas. And I think this will be helpful as you see how all of our tools kind of ladder down from these 2 umbrella themes. We are going to be focusing on 5 messages, and the first are outlined on the left side, where we're really going to focus on why dairy has always been that clear choice. Christy showed the labels comparing milk with milk alternatives, and it's really a strong story to show those 3 ingredients versus the multiple ingredients on a milk alternative. And so the clear choice is something that we want to continue to focus on, and particularly on the area that we know that one of the slides that Christy shows is fat level is the number 3 driver for dairy purchasing. So that was interesting for us to learn, and also to see that consumers don't necessarily understand that no matter what the fat level is, what type of milk they choose, whether it's whole or low fat or skim, all types of milk have that same unique nutrient package of 9 essential nutrients. So that's a gap that we're going to be trying to focus on. Flavored milk is also an area that we want to continue to reassure individuals and families that they can enjoy flavored milk with confidence, that there is some added sugar there, but the nutrient package continues to be unbeatable and a really great choice if you're looking for those 9 essential nutrients that you really can't get anywhere else. And then the third message under that clear choice theme is about processing, because we know consumers know about pasteurization, they know about homogenization, they may not completely understand what they mean, they know they're good things, but they're a little unclear on how they affect the overall nutritional package. So we want to continue to reassure consumers that milk, the processing is a fabulous addition, and milk continues to always have that amazing nutrient package. On the right, the second umbrella theme is about milk and comparing milk as a cleaner choice when people are looking at milk alternatives, if clean is an area that they're looking for when making their purchasing decisions. And so we will be really focusing on that. Not only is the nutrient package, the ingredient package cleaner and easier to understand, but that it is really, milk has a higher quality protein and more absorbable calcium, so that again nutrition package continues to be unbeatable when you look at milk versus milk alternatives. And then people are always looking for less processed and local foods. Those are increasingly important attributes to consumers, and milk has an incredibly strong story to tell there. Much less processing than milk alternatives, and it really is that true local food. We know that milk gets from the farm to the store in about 48 hours, and that is a local story that we want to continue to share with consumers. So how are we packaging up all of these key messages so that we can share the information with our key audiences, whether they're employees or our consumers or our shoppers? Christy mentioned the executive summary that we will be linking to and sending out at the end of the session. This really provides some in-depth detail on our methodology and the objectives. It outlines our key findings and the recommendations of key actions that Midwest Dairy is going to be taking to really share this information and close the gaps in some of the misconceptions that we uncovered. So we do have this executive summary available to any of you who are interested in really digging in and learning more of these details. We have hard copies that are available, and we'll also be linking to it on our website. So you'll be able to print it out and dig in, share it with anyone that really wants to have that more in-depth conversation and really dig into the details. If you're looking for a more at-a-glance, visually appealing look at the survey results, on the right we have developed a colorful infographic that really focuses on the key learnings and the key education points in the survey. And again, this is a one-look view at the survey in a way that we hope is engaging as you're either learning about the survey results and findings yourself or sharing them with audiences that you're meeting with over the next months and into 2017. On the next slide, we will also be posting a lot of this information on our website as well. On several places, our website, just as a reminder, is midwestdairy.com, and we want to make sure that it is as easy as possible for all of our partners and anyone who's visiting our website to find it. So there's a couple of places that we're going to be really packaging this together so you can see it all at a glance. The first is going to be on our Farm to Table page, and you will see that we are including a new section on Clean and Clear where we will link to the executive summary and the infographic and the video series that I'm going to talk about in a couple of seconds. And we are also creating a brochure, which you can see here on the right side, which is again a handout for you to take to meetings, whether they're one-on-one or group settings, or even if you're having a conversation and want to have a leave behind to talk through and have whoever you're talking to get a better understanding of dairy's role in Clean and Clear. The front side really focuses on dairy's clean label and the local aspect of milk versus milk alternatives, and the back is a pretty in-depth conversation of the unmatched nutrition that consumers can enjoy with milk versus milk alternatives. So we're going to be weaving that into the as I said, the Farm to Table section of our website. We also have a Dairy Resource Center, and I'm going to preview where that is next just so you can see how to find it on our website. But again, that'll be a one-stop shop where you can find all of these resources. And then we'll be weaving it throughout the entire website. So if someone is on our Milk Alternatives page or our Dairy Nutrition page or our On-Farm page, we will be linking to all this content. So before I move, so how can you get these materials? On the next slide, I just wanted to provide a little tour of our website so you can see how to access these. On the left side here, you can see our home page where the Dairy Resource Center is circled. That is obviously found on, it can be found on our home page. If you click on that upper right Dairy Resource Center, it'll take you to the screen grab that is next to it, which is our Dairy Resource Center. The second click is Nutrition Resources, and when you get there, that's where the next slide will show how the Clean and Clear materials will look on our website. So all in one spot, you'll find that executive summary, you'll find the infographic, and you will find that handout or brochure. It's a half-page size, so it can be used as a bookmark or can just be carried around easily in a convenient format. Along with these print resources, we also know that individuals, consumers, are really engaging with consumer much more readily when it's shared in video format. So we have created a video series, 5 really brief videos, all about 45 seconds to a minute long, each focusing on one of those key messages that I've previewed, with the goal of really, again, continuing to bridge some of the gaps that were uncovered in the survey. So we were fortunate enough to be able to videotape grocery shoppers at the dairy case while they were actually doing their shopping. We asked them questions about some of their perceptions around these themes, and we're weaving those perceptions in with some additional content that really is designed to further educate and engage consumers in the conversation around these topics. So whether it's nutrition across all types of milk, the nutritional benefits of flavored milk, there's a video that compares milk and milk alternatives in terms of their label, clean label, and number of ingredients. There's one around the nutritional benefits of milk versus milk alternatives, and then a 5th video around processing. So we'll be posting these videos on YouTube and on our website, and we will be making them available to our staff and partners as well in the event that you want to integrate them into your communications, either your websites or your social outreach throughout 2017. And that's a segue just to talk about the social media support and the traditional media support that we'll be using to surround this campaign. Just like all of our Midwest Dairy outreach, we will have a strong social media plan to support the rollout of these resources. We will be promoting this new content, whether it's new blog content from Midwest Dairy experts, the website content, the videos, the infographic, the handout/bookmark via social postings on Midwest Dairy channels. And then we'll be making it available to our partners through a social media calendar that we do make available through our business development team. So we will, again, if these are things you would like to share on your own social channels or own website, we will be making them available to you. We also encourage you to watch Midwest Dairy's website and social channels, and feel free to share and like and retweet, again, whatever works for your own social strategy and social practices. And then finally, we will be working on some media outreach during the first quarter. We have a staff of registered dietitians who regularly work with their local media contacts, and they'll be sharing these resources with the hope of scheduling some TV segments where they'll be able to provide some dairy-related tips and recipes to really help the viewers in each market really understand dairy's role in Clean and Clear and how to practically integrate dairy into their lives. So these are going to be, again, rolling out in the first quarter, but also throughout the year, depending on what works for our media contacts and the editorial plans that they have. And we encourage all of you, all of our partners, to consider this theme in your media outreach as well. And again, we have tools and resources for you if that is something that is of interest. So now that I've shared a high-level review of the campaign strategy and tools and resources, I wanted to talk through what we're asking of all of you. And again, this is something that we're going to be focusing on in early 2017, but rolling up throughout the entire year as important key messages in all of our work at Midwest Dairy. We would love to invite you to share findings with your teams and your key audiences, either in meetings or through your communications channels. So again, if you have websites, if you have newsletters, if you have social channels where this information would fit into the plans that you have, we would love to collaborate with you, make the resources available, and work together to amplify this information. We encourage you to direct your team members, your key audiences to MidwestDairy.com for more information and materials. They can spend a little more time with the resources. They can download, print them off, whatever works for them. If you are someone who really wants to dig in a little bit more, want to really look at the detailed survey findings, I encourage you to connect with your Midwest Dairy Program Manager. We can make those survey findings available to you. We have that executive summary, but we also have breakdowns of each individual question we've asked and all the details. So depending on how much you want to know, we've got it for you. And then we encourage encourage you to utilize your social media channels or to watch Midwest Dairy's channels to continue to amplify this information in a way that works for you. And to make it easy, we are going to be sharing this information with you throughout the first quarter through a lot of our newsletters. I know a lot of you probably are subscribers, but if for some reason you aren't on our distribution lists, feel free to reach out to us and we are happy to add you so that you can get the latest and greatest updates and links to this information as we freshen it up, say, with new blog content or new information throughout the year. And then down below is just a calendar of how we plan to roll out this activity throughout the first quarter. And so when you receive the link to this webinar, you can see that. And it'll just, if you're interested in that level of detail to know when we'll be sharing information in our newsletters, we'll be doing a news release, we will be obviously supplying social media content to our partners and our team, and we'll also be supporting this with Facebook advertising or sponsored Facebook posts. So again, just a high-level look at the cadence on how this information will all roll out. So now we have some time. As I mentioned, we wanted to reserve some time at the end for questions, if anyone has any. A couple different ways you can do this. You can certainly type your question into the question box that you can see in the control panel on the screen, and Debbie and our team can direct the questions to Christy and I. Or if you want to ask the question in person, feel free to use the raise your hand feature and Debbie can unmute your line and you can ask away. And as we're waiting, as you guys are thinking, know that we are also available, all of the Midwest Dairy program staff is available to answer questions as you continue to look at this information or kind of digest it, and questions may come up after the fact as well.
At this time, Trish, there are no questions in the queue.
Okay. Anything I missed, Christy, that you want to share?
No, just I echo Trish's statement that we're happy to answer any questions as you think about this, and look forward to seeing how you make these tools come to life in the new year.
All right. Well, I might be able to give you a few minutes back. We can wrap this up. Oh, yeah? Question.
Quick question. Did the survey ask about the percent? I'm sorry. Do you see the question in the queue? Did the survey ask,
did the survey ask about perceptions of dairy ingredients?
Yes.
Christy, you want to tackle that one, Christy, in terms of the wording of the questions?
Yes. So, and again, I instantly like dairy ingredients like cheese powder or a whey ingredient. Perceptions, no. We did not ask specific questions about dairy ingredients.
Oh, there's something else. Is there another question? Oh, here. Got it. Great. We can maybe wait a couple minutes in case there's another straggler.
Yeah, one thing to make a note of this, Trish, while we wait to see if there are other questions, one thing we did not talk about on this, but if it would impact your business, we did ask some key demographic questions, income, gender, households with and without children. So if seeing the data through those lenses would be helpful as you think through your business, we'd be happy to share that too.
And the executive summary does provide some additional detail about the respondents and some of the demographics. So as you get a chance to take a look at that and dig in a little deeper, that might be helpful. Okay.
Are you able to see any of the questions? I can read them if you want me to.
I am not seeing them, so.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was trying to just kind of guide you in there. Was the question on dairy drivers open or closed-ended?
I'm assuming that's drivers of purchase, and we provided about 15 different statements. It was not an open-end question. Those were statements provided to the consumers taking the survey.
People who are encouraged raw milk believes that there are nutrients that are decreased during pasteurization. Are there any nutrients that change during pasteurization that are not part of the nutrients that are primarily focused on or in milk, such as protein, vitamin D, vitamin A, calcium?
Try to see that. No, the nutrition processing does not affect the nutrient profile of the milk. It actually retains its positive nutrient profile, if that makes sense. Except there is that misconception from the survey that maybe there is some sort of effect with processing, and that's something we really want to focus on.
A person writes, I've heard a lot of concern about antibiotics used in dairy cattle. Can you clarify how this fits into your clean and clear advertising campaigns?
We aren't addressing it specifically in these materials. We found through our, I'm trying to find that slide from Christy, but that animal care kinds of topics are, at least from this survey finding, lesser, higher ranked findings, or drivers, sorry. So yep. That is not something that we're spending a lot of time focusing on, because we really wanted to identify what are the top messages or the top misconceptions, and how can we focus our communication and outreach around those topics.
We do have Cindy Sorensen. Cindy, your line's unmuted.
Oh, thanks, Debbie. Hey, I just had a question of, do we have any insight as to how consumers respond to, say, on the clean or clear of flavored milk versus how they actually act or consume products? Because we actually see the sales and consumption of flavored milk being up pretty dramatically. So I'm just curious, because they're reporting one thing about how they consider it as clean and clear, but then they're consuming it obviously in greater amounts. Did any insight that the research uncovered in that area?
If there's a researcher on the phone, I give the disclaimer about methodology. So to answer your question specifically, Cindy, we didn't ask it that way, but there are kind of two parts that could lead you to, why that can happen in the presence of seeing flavored milk being perceived as less clean. So at the very beginning, one of the things that we shared with you is that it's only 1 out of 4 consumers at this point that are making purchase decisions based on how clean a product is. So while we have almost 3 out of 10, that 28% that make that decision, that still leaves 7 out of 10 that don't. So that could be a driver. And then, as we shared too, about half of consumers already see flavored milk as being clean. It's less clean in their mind than unflavored milk, but still half of consumers perceive it as being clean. So, you put those two pieces together and you can see how purchase can be increasing. You probably have some people who see it as clean and are purchasing it for that reason, and some people who are still making their purchase decisions, without clean being a key driver, and they might be purchasing for that reason as well. So regardless, we know flavored milk still has those 9 essential nutrients, and that the industry has made huge strides in the last several years in how flavored milk is delivered in less processed and a cleaner ingredient label.
Thank you. That was a good point. Thank you.
Another question, kind of along those same lines. Does the animal diet, grass-fed versus grain-fed, change the nutrient panel of the milk product?
That one I don't know the specific answer to. Christy, do you? I don't. We may have to follow up on that. All milk has those 9 essential nutrients, but we can follow up on specifics for that person on, with a more detailed response.
That's all the questions at this time.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for feeling comfortable asking those questions. And again, if others come up as you're starting to digest some of these materials, feel free to reach out to us as follow-up to the email you'll get after this meeting, or reach out to your Midwest Dairy Program Manager and we will get you the information you need. I wanted to thank all of you for taking time this morning to learn a little bit more about the topic, and to thank Christy for sharing her insights and expertise with us as well today. We hope you all got a better sense of how your dairy products fit in perfectly to the clean and clear labeling trend, and now know where to find some resources if indeed you're having conversations with some of your key audiences who are most likely paying attention to this topic as well. Watch for your email over the next couple of days. As I mentioned, we'll have a link to the recording, a link to the executive summary, and we will also have some information about how to obtain continuing education credits if that's of interest to you. And we'll also be, as I mentioned, sharing this information through our newsletters throughout the new year. So again, if you receive these, you should be obviously getting access to that information. If you want to be added to one of our newsletters, just respond to the email you receive after this webinar and we'll be sure to add you to our list. So as we wrap up, thanks again for your interest and support. Watch your emails in early 2017 and throughout next year as we continue our webinar series. Again, if you have topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to let us know, and we will consider them as we're putting together our plans for next year. And so thanks again on behalf of Midwest Dairy and our dairy farmers. I wanted to just say have a great day and week, and have a great holiday season as well. Thanks so much.